Um, Great. Now, speaking of momentum, people are certainly here on time this morning, so I'm not going to delay anyone because we may as well get started. There's great participation already. Folks, you're very welcome to our webinar with Tourism Ireland and Cliff Hotel Group, and it's sponsored by Local Enterprise Office, which we're really grateful for, and it's great to collaborate with them again. We work very well together, and it's great to be resource sharing, particularly around now. There's a super list of attendees this morning. I know everybody's going to get something out of this, and I'm thrilled that Niall Gibbons, who's Chief Exec of Tourism Ireland, has been available to do this for us. Niall comes highly recommended, certainly by my chamber colleagues around the country. He's delivered similar presentations, and so I'm delighted that he's going to be able to help us understand, we'll say from Tourism Ireland perspective, what could lie ahead for us. And I know Niall will touch on Brexit and other challenges that might be faced into the future, and just see what Tourism Ireland are doing, and then Cliff House are going to give, I suppose, a more national context to particularly owned businesses on what they're doing, and a local context to that as well. So without delaying any further, Niall, I'm going to hand over to you, if that's okay, and we will get going. That's all right.
Great, thanks very much, Jenny, and good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for inviting me to participate in this platform. Really important time to keep connected and keep communicating with. Welcome to those people in the hospitality sector. Great to see you here as well. Well done on all the great work that you're doing. So look, what I might just do is give you a little bit of background as to how we've got where we've got to, talk a bit about what we're doing in Tourism Ireland at the moment, and look a bit to the future then. And happy to take any questions or answers afterwards. I came into Tourism Ireland when the company was established after the Good Friday Agreement to promote the island of Ireland abroad, and we've always had this challenge of getting the Irish people to understand the importance of international tourism. And we've lived through a golden age over the 2015 to 2019 period. Last year we saw 11.2 million people visit the island of Ireland. Now, given that we have a population of about 6.7 million on the island, that's an impressive figure. And they spent, the overseas visitors, 5.8 billion euros, and they supported, that spend supported 325,000 jobs across the whole island of Ireland, north, south, east and west. A really important part of the economic fabric of society, because all that spend is not in places like Dublin or Galway, Cork. It reaches out and stretches into every town and village across every county in Ireland. I suppose the biggest challenge that we've been handling over the last 3 years was Brexit. As soon as the UK voted to leave the European Union in 2016, we had a Brexit work team set up, work stream set up. We conducted research to the British market. We did an awful lot of work positioning Ireland on being ready for whatever was going to emerge from that. And I thought back, involving myself in that, and back to my very early days in Tourism Ireland when I came in just after 9/11. I thought I had seen it all until COVID-19 came. And the first chapter of my experience in COVID-19 was around the middle of January, when we started to get feedback from our operation over in China that there was a virus that seemed to be impacting on society over there, and it was very hard to gauge what was going to happen. However, by the end of January, it's fair to say, we were in full mode in China in scaling back operations, closing our office in Shanghai, postponing our sales mission to China. And this wasn't really felt in Ireland because the China business was only 0.9 of 1% of our overall business. And we thought, well, this is something that happens over there, like SARS and all these other things. But however, the second chapter of our Corona story really came towards the end of February, when it was apparent, as Italy started to get worse, and the impact has been felt on travel and hospitality around Europe. And the first sign was in no-shows at airports. So the airlines were telling us that people were booking flights but not turning up for them. And that obviously wasn't being felt in the hotel or restaurant sector, because this was going to come down the track, so to speak, in terms of bookings. But nothing prepared us for the third chapter of COVID-19, which for me was over in Washington, D.C. during St. Patrick's Week, with a Taoiseach and a senior delegation doing as we do promote Ireland abroad. And on the 13th of March, we were all on a plane home. And over the next number of weeks, we watched the unraveling of the entire industry, which no one ever, in all the risk registers I've put together over the year, expected anything like this. We've seen declines in one market or another for various reasons over the years. We were always able to change tack and balance the portfolio, so we were able to rescue the year, so to speak. So where we are now is that, we've seen, well, over the April-May period, the entire industry come to a standstill. Very scary time for a lot of people who invested their livelihoods and lives in business. From a Tourism Ireland perspective, we were watching the international industry completely unravel. We've never been in a situation where, from an air perspective, everything nearly, came down to the ground. Hotels all shut, bars shut, the whole lot. But we had to keep the lights on for Ireland abroad. It was important to remember that people will get back to travelling despite every crisis that we've had. We go through difficult periods, but you have to remind people of how good Ireland is. So we established 9 cross-cutting groups across our company. First of all, to keep contact with trade partners internationally. These are people who put a lot of tourism into Ireland. About a quarter of our total business comes to our trade partners. Very important in markets like America, Germany, Italy, and others. We had another big setup in relation to talking to air and sea carriers, just to establish what the pattern of behaviour was. We had seen the number of seats coming into Ireland fall from 615,000 a week down to almost nothing. And the question was, how could we re-establish that? And then thirdly, how do we use our digital platforms abroad to keep Ireland in the spotlight? And not doing a hard sell of come to Ireland now for $5.99. It's more about how do you bring culture to the fore to differentiate Ireland from other destinations. So when people do come to book, which they will do, that Ireland is ahead of the posse. So we were very fortunate that there were a lot of people out there who unfortunately don't have a stage at the moment because there's no social gatherings or festivals or events. And we were able to broadcast a lot of things on our overseas platforms. And we sometimes take for granted how big they are. But last year we had 23 million visitors into Ireland.com alone. We've got 5 million followers on our social media channels. They have an average of 200 friends each. So if we can get people to like or share one thing on our social platforms, we can reach an audience of up to 1 billion people. So we found by taking content from certain cultural institutions and broadcasting it while the industry was closed, over the last number of months, we've actually had 95 million views on our Facebook Live page, which is a phenomenal figure. Really, really impressive. What's more impressive is actually the conversations that people were engaging in around Ireland at that time about their willingness to come, the fact that they actually postponed their trip as opposed to cancel their trip. And that meant something as well. So there are markets like Germany where between 50 and 95% of travel trade actually postponed their trip into 2021 as opposed to cancelling it and generating a refund, which has been a source of distress for the industry. So that was all very good. And as we started to head more towards May and June and thinking about how do we restart this whole business again, how do we get going, there were 3 major factors really that will drive Tourism Ireland in the next sort of year to 18 months. The first for us is, how will the consumer emerge from this pandemic? And what will they be looking for? There's no question that what they looked for in the past is unlikely to be what they're going to be looking for in the next 12 to 18 months. So in that respect, what we've embarked on is a major research project across our top 10 markets to track consumer sentiment in relation to COVID-19 and its impact on behaviour. And I'll come back to that in a moment. Secondly, air access is something we sometimes take for granted. 90% of people who come to Ireland come by air. It's important in terms of regional distribution. We're fortunate with the likes of Aer Lingus and Ryanair that we have 2 carriers that generate about 85% of our total business. And what's been happening on the air side around the world is just phenomenal. In the United States alone, the US government has granted a $50 billion bailout for its carriers, Delta, American, United. You'll see the German government has bailed out Lufthansa for a total of $9 billion. Same is happening with KLM, with also with Alitalia. So it's a really distressing time for the carriers because the cash burn is phenomenal, but there's no income coming in. So we participated in the Aviation Recovery Task Force established by the Minister. That was chaired by Chris Horn, the CEO of Aer Lingus, the major aircraft leasing companies, all the main airports. And really, it set out an agenda of 12 items that have been published on the Department of Transport's website, which include things like, lifting quarantine, changing travel advisories, in conjunction with putting a comprehensive track and trace system in place, so to speak, to manage, I suppose, the balance of the risk between saving lives, which is absolutely critical, and also saving livelihoods, particularly within our own industry in the long term. And it's always a difficult balance to get. The Tourism Recovery Task Force I participate on as well, and that's got a number of working streams in terms of how to re-establish and regenerate the industry. And that industry support part is the third pillar that Tourism Ireland will be working on when we do get back into the marketplace. How will we support our industry who have been decimated over the last number of months and with really limited marketing capacity, get back out onto big marketing platforms when the world gets moving again. So in terms of the customer, going back to the first one, how have they changed? Well, we've done 2 COVID tracker surveys. These are surveys a bit like what you read in the political polls in the Sunday papers. They're done with 1,000 adults in the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and the United States, which are our top 4 markets. And really what it's telling us is that there is a huge lack of confidence now with regard to international travel, and not just for Ireland, but in general. And people are looking for reassurance, they're looking for comfort, they're looking for security. So what's going to be really important is safety, particularly in the short to medium term. People are looking for comfort in the known. A year ago, if I was at this seminar, I would have said people are looking to go to new destinations. Well, actually now people are looking to go back and look for comfort in existing destinations that they've been to before, not looking to take risks, more likely to connect with friends and family than to seek the unknown, braggable type experience. And that confidence has improved slightly over the month into the second wave of COVID tracker, but still it's a major issue for us heading into the future. We've done some deep dive work in the United Kingdom as well, and we're doing that across all our top 10 markets over the next 6 to 9 months, which will give us a real insight into what it is that will motivate people in the months ahead. But that lack of confidence is a major factor that's there. Our welcome is another issue as well that's been a cornerstone of what Ireland is regarded for abroad. And certainly what we've seen in the last week or two, particularly with the chatter around the green list in international media, probably hasn't helped the sense of Irish welcome, because what happens is that if a list of 15 countries go out, some are included, some are excluded, but no one gets the science behind this because it's complicated. And for the consumer, it's just about, well, how do I get to Ireland and when can I get there? And we've also got the stimulus package coming this afternoon. We have no inside track in relation to what will be on it. There's papers are speculating it'll be approximately a 6 billion stimulus package, and that's going to be very important to maintaining our industry, because certainly as we go through now into the August-September period, winter is going to be difficult because the international spend accounts for 75% of total spend of the hospitality sector. So while we all may staycation at home, I'm afraid the spend this year will be nothing like what it's been in the previous years. On the international side, we're likely to see a decline of 75 to 80%. And while we will see more people staying at home, it's a different profile of customer than we're used to from abroad. So look, I mean, I've probably talked for enough. I mean, in terms of where we go in the future, as I said, the Tourism Recovery Task Force is going to generate a final report towards the end of August, early September. It'll be really important that we're back out in the international marketplace with a very strong voice for 2021. Our main markets of the United States, France, Germany, and Britain are likely to be the big 4, even post-COVID-19 as well. But there are a lot of other markets that we've done a lot of work on over the years, like China, Australia, that'll take a little bit longer to re-establish, given where they are. And we need to work with our air carriers and with government as well to stimulate additional air access when the time is right. So, you know, look, as we head back in and look towards the back end of this year, I think, you know, the major international restart is coming into 2021. We hope that a vaccine will be found, because that's the major confidence boost that's going to come and that will generate people traveling internationally again. But for the short term, I mean, I'd certainly be saying to anybody in the hospitality sector, make sure that you're looking after your customers, that you're dazzling your customers, that they're going off giving you great word of mouth feedback. Make sure that you're working on your database with regard to people who have come before. Repeat visits are more likely, according to our research, than new visits. Make sure that you're working on any family friends databases that you have, because that's likely to generate business as well. And above all, communication networking is really important. I went through the last recession as CEO of Tourism Ireland, and there's one thing I learned in times of a crisis: it's really important to stick together and support each other, be kind to each other, and to help each other, because the community support that underpins tourism should never be taken for granted. And that's what really gives Ireland the standout on the world stage, our capacity to come together as one country. And Ireland is very highly regarded. And in our research, if there's any message of hope I leave with, when we benchmarked ourselves in research over the last 2 months against other countries around the world, Ireland has stood out head and shoulders above many competitor destinations as somewhere people intend to go in the short term. I mean, benchmarked ourselves against other countries like the United States, like Italy, like Germany, like the UK. I mean, the only countries that were coming out ahead of us would have been the likes of Norway, Scotland, countries with other good track records, so to speak. So the COVID experience, while it's been a personal, difficult one for many people in Ireland and too many people died, and we are at a situation where our international reputation is actually good for the medium to long term. So look, I want to thank you again for having me on the platform today. I'm going to finish at that point and happy to take any questions or comments or observations that people might have. Thanks very much again, Jerry.
Thanks very much for that. Niall, I want to just, you mightn't have the answer for this, but I just wonder your research, which is really, I suppose, consoling and comforting for us, that people aren't looking for the braggable experience, that they're more likely to look for kind of the comfort zone of which Ireland would be, in the Ireland of many welcomes. And we can certainly offer that mammying experience to an awful lot of people. Do you have any feedback just yet as regards what type of accommodation people would use therefore? And is it mainly kind of the self-catering, or will they go to the B&Bs and the smaller places again, based on the risk might be associated with fewer people? I just wonder if you have any information on that.
Yes, we dug into that as to what was it that people would look for. And by the way, there's much more information available on tourismireland.com. We can send the summary of the research to you. You can send out to your members, because there's some really good insights and learnings on that. But essentially on the accommodation side at the moment, what people are looking for is isolation. So self-catering is going to do very well this year, caravan and camping. Anything that's by the seaside tends to be good too. Bucket and spades, absolutely. People are not looking for crowded spaces. People are not comfortable in public transport, and people are not comfortable with the idea of festivals at the moment. Now, this will change in the long term, obviously, but people have had a shock and they don't want to put themselves at risk. Their biggest fear is what they're saying to us at the moment, and these are international people, by the way, are saying that the last thing they want to find themselves is either catching the virus, bringing it home, or getting isolated in a country with quarantine. So they don't want to take any necessary and unnecessary risks. So as I said, self-catering is certainly going to have a very good summer. Caravan camping will have a good summer. B&Bs will find it very tough. Hotels, it's been a mixed experience. And what people are saying to us is that they want to see other people do it first. In other words, people are reluctant to be the first people to try the hotel. Now, I went down myself on a personal journey down to Kerry, just to try them out when they opened up. And I have to say the experience was terrific. And I don't normally tweet or put private things out on social media, but I did, because the staff did a great job and they deserve the credit. So I think we should shout out where people are doing really good work in our industry, because it'll just encourage people who are feeling maybe a bit nervous. Maybe they have an elderly relative. Maybe they feel the hotel will be too sanitized. But actually the experience is quite good, to be honest with you. I think everyone's pulled together very well. So that's the trend that we're seeing in the short to medium term. And we'll conduct that COVID tracker on a monthly or 2 monthly basis over the next 12 months to see what trends emerge as we head forward into 2021.
Great, and a question just in there, and thank you very much for that, Niall. A question just in there, I suppose, about is there any research about the length of trips? Obviously, Tourism Ireland is bringing people in from abroad, so it has to be, a number of overnights, but is there any way of indicating whether that would be, kind of short weekends, or would it be the longer 2 or 3 week stays? I just wonder, have people kind of made their, resolved yet to what they might do into the future?
Not yet. I mean, obviously, we're not bringing people in this year at the moment, but what we have asked people is, how they're feeling. They're feeling nervous at the moment. And the anecdotal feedback we're picking up internationally and both here at home is that people are taking much shorter breaks. They're dipping their toe in the water at the moment. Some of the hotels are in rural areas are doing better. I mean, national statistics at the moment show that rural hotels have occupancy rates of about 50%. Dublin hotels, for example, this month have an occupancy of 16%, 1/6. There'll normally be 97%. So that shows the scale of challenge that we have. Urban hotels are really challenged this year. But certainly a lot of people that are booking seem to be doing much shorter 1, 2 or 3 night stays, just feeling a bit nervous, not ready to stay the 7 to 10 days.
Great. Sorry, there's another question just in here now. Is a track and trace solution likely as we seek a vaccine and in order to enable the borders to open?
I know that it's been talked about. I don't know how likely it is. I mean, in a typical year, you'd have 11.2 million people come in. That's a lot of people to track and trace. But certainly, I know the government the other day, in addition to announcing the green list, did commit to upgrade the passenger locator experience, so to speak, as more people start to come into the country. So look, I mean, the only way you probably can live with this virus, because it doesn't look like it's going to go away in the near term, is to have some sort of track and trace system that's as rapid as possible, so that where we have situations where people have got COVID, that they can be isolated quickly and it doesn't become a risk to the general population.
Thank you. And actually, just on that, I was listening to News Talk yesterday, and they were interviewing one of the representatives from Greenland, who was talking about people having been tested before they left that country, and then by the time they arrive, there's a shorter isolation period. And that could that be a possibility for the Irish experience, or for to I suppose to attract more people, and also to allay fears of Irish people who are offering a tourism service?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head in two respects. I mean, first of all, I think we have to give reassurance to our own industry, because there have been people coming in from abroad. Now, only a handful, I'd say. Some of them are repatriation. Some of them are people who have booked a flight, maybe not knowing the fact that there were quarantine restrictions in place. And it's been very tough. We had just had anecdotal and only a handful of feedback issues from around the country, where people arrive into a restaurant from abroad or a hotel. What do you do? How do you handle it? I think the welfare of the staff is very, very important. But certainly an expansion of trace and tracking will be essential if there's going to be any sort of relaxation in relation to people coming in or going out of the country.
Thank you. There's a query in somebody about that you mentioned, was say Germany and France would be part of the big four that's attracted here, and a business owner here said that she has very small amount of business from Germany and very little French as well. But just wondering, have you any recommendations about how more local or smaller businesses can push themselves towards these markets, so that we're ready for them in tandem with Tourism Ireland?
Yeah, what I'll do is after this, I'll send you a website, Industry Opportunities, where people can sign up. And we'd love if your chamber could sort of promote that for us. We will, when we're back in the marketplace, have a lot of platforms and opportunities for businesses to pitch their opportunities abroad. And it'll be very important. I think, your area has an awful lot to offer, particularly for French and German tourists. And they're great travelers. They love the regions. Germany's our third biggest market, France our fourth biggest. And what was encouraging from our research that we did in the four top markets was that the European markets are more likely to travel at an earlier stage than the UK or US. UK and US are still more dealing with the COVID difficulties right now, but certainly in France and Germany, they move the agenda along quite substantially, and I think we could end up seeing tourism from those countries earlier than others. But what I'll do is after the webinar, I'll give you a website where people can get on, and also to get in contact with your local Fáilte Ireland people on the ground as well, who obviously handle the domestic industry, but they're a very important conduit for us into the international marketplace.
Great, actually, that was a great lead into, I suppose, the next point or question that I might have is that, the Wild Atlantic Way is super sold abroad, and it's one of the main attractions, I suppose, for people for that experiential holiday here. And we'd love to be part of that, but we're not. And so, but Waterford would have everything that the Wild Atlantic Way, offers. And so, is there any way that we could reset the traditional tourist route and have them coming more towards Waterford, but also offering like that coastal expedition style experience? I suppose, is there any heads up you can give us, Niall, how we can catapult Waterford while people are considering, while they're all like during their cocooning, or while we're not moving, I guess. What can we do to use this time to collaborate and make Waterford a must-see destination?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And the first thing I'd encourage you not to do is not to look over your shoulder at the Wild Atlantic Way. The Wild Atlantic Way is one part of the story of Ireland. And it's not just a marketing story. It's also about bringing communities together to develop sustainable demand that brings them from being only an 8 or 10 week season, to a longer 3, 4, 5, 6 month season. There's an enormous amount of things that Waterford has, going for it already. And that, as part of, first of all, the destination that can be reached within an hour from Dublin Airport with the motorway access is superb. I mean, the access into the west of Ireland is not half as good as that. I think the addition of the Greenway has been a huge plus for Waterford. I was down there when it opened. And if you saw what that did for Mayo, for example, I think there's great opportunities in relation to that. I think the area of activity tourism is something that really, particularly in the post-COVID world, is going to be more important. People are going to want to be more outdoors. than they will indoors. So I think those sort of outdoor pursuits will be really important. And I think on the other side, another part of the equation as well on tourism is the area of food, which I think you're really well positioned in as well. And the whole area of food is something that Ireland is getting a better reputation for, and there's a great opportunity to get yourselves on the map. So accessibility is really important, ease of getting there. I think you have that in spades. I think in terms of activities, the Greenway is a great example of what's there. And in terms of food, you've got some terrific people down there, I know already, who are great at dialing up the destination. And it's really, you just have to keep on doing that. And, you'll get the recognition and you'll get the build. But I do think the fact of getting there from Dublin is a major, major plus we sometimes underestimate.
That's brilliant. Outdoors and food we can certainly do by bucket load, and it's something that we're very, very passionate about, and that there's huge experiences to be had from. So that we'll definitely be working on. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to continue to send them in. Niall is going to stay with us just for the next few minutes while we have Honor Byrne, who is Group Marketing Director for Cliff Hotel Group. And so Honor is going to talk about, we'll see how they're reassembling their business as well. And so Niall, thank you very, very much. Thrilled with that. And I'd also be delighted to send on the summary of research and the website that you're going to share with us to all the attendees after this. So thank you again. And Honor, we're over to you now. Thanks a million.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen there, Jenny? So Cliff, which I know everyone is very familiar with, and we thank you all for your support in all manner to the property in Ardmore. We have 3 properties in the group. You have the Coastal Luxury just out the road in Ardmore. We have a restored Irish village just 30 minutes from Dublin Airport in Dublin City. That's known as Clifford Lions. And then a beautiful seafood restaurant event space and just 9 bedrooms right on. Focusing more on Cliff House Hotel for the sake of this call, it's a 39-bedroom property just overlooking the sea in the fishing village of Ardmore, with a 1 Michelin star restaurant and a beautiful Irish destination spa. Now, 2020 was to be our year internationally, so we had many new developments and experiences in the hotel. We had recruited a brand new culinary team, headed up by a Carlo man known as Ian Doyle, and Ian was already very familiar with Ardmore. He studied professional cookery in Waterford Institute of Technology. He did some time in the tannery with Wolf Lynn, and then he headed off around the world, most notably working for 2-star Michelin in Stockholm, known as Oaxen Krog, and also working for the world-renowned Noma in Copenhagen. So Ian was effectively coming home and was really, I suppose, reinventing the culinary product in Ardmore, which has always been so well known and has really played to the success of the hotel. We had also kicked off a full hotel refurbishment and had managed to refurb about 40% of our bedrooms with the intention of moving on throughout the hotel and the public spaces. And we had launched a new villa product, the stunning Cliff Beach House, which you'll see here. It's a 6-bedroom property overlooking the hotel and overlooking the ocean. Architect designed, finished to the highest level, and very much designed for the international market, groups of friends, multi-generational families looking for a really exceptional and immersive experience with all the modern comforts and facilities that you would find in any exclusive let around the world. We were also going to offer some award-winning services up there, such as our Michelin star chefs, and had partnered with all of our local activity partners to make sure that the guest was going to have a unique Waterford oceanside experience. So all of that was setting us up to really boost our international room nights per year. Surprisingly, the hotel has always thrived, and domestic room nights have always been the majority holder in our markets, with gradual growth throughout. So you'll see there, we jump a couple of percentage points every year, but nothing very notable. 2020, we had forecasted over a 9% jump in international room nights. And we were going to do that by bringing this new product to the market. We had for the first time recruited a North American sales representation company. Both a UK and a US PR firm again had been secured as a project to launch the Cliff Beach House. We were recruiting numerous international media stays, had a really targeted digital and international marketing campaign all ready to kick off on March 17th. We all know that didn't happen, but it did give us time. And I suppose what we have done is quite similar, I'm sure, to all of you in your businesses. We had to deal with the practicalities first. We had to shut down the properties, unfortunately, and rearrange all of the business on the books. Work with our partners internationally to reschedule rather than cancel. We led some short-term diversifications in order to keep the brand alive in the marketplace, such as takeaways from our Dublin property. We expanded our retail and our send home ranges, all of which aren't essentially profit-making enterprises, but they did keep us alive and allowed us to continue to generate content and keep us keep the brand alive in our markets. We did some community outreaches with charity cooking and in all 3 properties, and supported some of the frontline services as well as the local communities. And then we took the time to review all the markets, to review all of our content, to conduct research amongst our loyal guests, and really took the time to clean up our CRM and understand and know our clients and continue to tailor offers to them. And that allowed us to refresh our content. We had started a wonderful project last year with a local agency, which had given us great foundation for this fresh and revitalized content that we could put out to all of the various markets. Brand new packages, some new technology as well was employed, obviously, in the new world. A lot of things now need to be automated, and finding that mix between, we were always renowned in Ardmore for our local team, for our local welcome, for our warm welcome. And as Niall said, to find that mix now between the cautiousness and taking all of the concern and the care, but still expressing that warm welcome was quite a challenge for our HR team. So there was a lot of staff trainings and a lot of rewriting of operational procedures. During lockdown, we did a lot of client webinars, and I will tell you, most certainly from the international markets, there would have been maybe hundreds of US and North American travel agents on some of the webinars, and they have a hunger and an anticipation to get back over here. And I do feel, while it may be a slow build, it will come back, and it will come back very, very strong. And we've met with a lot of our local partnerships, I suppose refreshed collaborations, and really are trying to build up our product book. And our product book is very strong, and what we have to offer in the area of Ardmore and Dungarvan and Waterford City is very strong. But we're taking this time now to really build up those affiliations and refresh them. And I would say to anyone who is on the call who feels they have something that would be of interest to our clients, feel free to reach out to me at the end. And we can, of course, include you in our little black book and ensure that you are offered to a suitable client. And so we're rebuilding. So we've really shifted that focus back to our very loyal domestic client in the short term, and they are coming, thankfully, and are very happy and enjoying their experience in Waterford. We are continuing weekly reaches out to our inbound markets and keeping them warm. And our campaigns that we had ready to kick off on March 17th are still ready and refreshed, and we will kick them off when the markets are ready. They're not quite ready yet. They do still want to talk to us, but they are not ready to book yet. We're revisiting European markets that we may not have had success with in the past, but it's worth a shot now. So we're really targeting those markets, key agencies there, collecting content, and again, this is where the collaboration and the local opt-in is so important. And we're focusing on the awards and accreditations, and of course the cleanliness standards. But I think we all recognise that while this is a horrible situation and lots of people have unnecessarily passed away and we're not out of the woods yet, I do think there's a silver lining in this situation to some extent. And Waterford 2021, what we're finding from our international partners is the new luxurious space. They want off the beaten track, they want the lesser known areas, they want to be clean and green and safe, and they want a story to tell when they get home, and that's what Waterford has in heaps and bounds. And sometimes in the past may have been held against it, where the international tourist only wanted to go to the top 2 or 3 spots in the country. Now is our opportunity to get out there and tell them about all this fantastic local product, the people, the activities, the mountains, the lakes, the rivers, the seas, the oceans, everything that we have and more is here. So we're definitely encouraging taking this time to really refresh that content and keep pushing it out to our international partners. That's it, Jenny. Any questions, or as I said, my email address is there if there's anyone to know.
Sorry, Honor, I was just going to type in there to anybody who wants to pose a question just before you finish, so thank you very much. God, Honor, when you say you keep refreshing content and you can see like your descriptions, your content there is really sharp and like it's described beautifully. I love about how keeping markets warm. That's a really nice way of putting it. Can you just discuss again just about the client webinars, because that's really different and that's one way of really keeping things warm. How did you go about that? And you mentioned travel agents. I'd love to know a little bit more about that, Honor, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, Niall would know more on the statistics, but definitely for the higher end of travel, it seems like a bit of a foreign concept to us, excuse the pun, but most North Americans will have a personal travel advisor, which they use as a professional service individuals and our individual holidays. Of course, we have the coaches who we have the group tour market as well. I'm not sure if I've zoomed out or not. Have I?
I wasn't sure if it was my computer. No, you're there now. It just got a bit patchy.
I'm just going to stop my video there for a minute. So our sales and marketing route to, we'll say, the North American markets and some of the other inbound markets would be purely B2B. So we'd be selling to the travel trade, and the travel trade would then sell on to the consumer. So some of the webinars we attended were organized in conjunction with a lot of the inbound operators that would specialize in recruiting in North American clients, and all of that travel trade in those countries would dial on, and this was a wonderful opportunity for them to be educated in Ireland and just like us, take the time to sit back and refresh their content. That's why I do think there's a fabulous opportunity there for Waterford, because people at the moment are very open to new knowledge, new destinations, new content, and as you've seen, we suddenly now have all the themes that they are looking for in the undiscovered spaces and the off the beaten track.
You sure do. And Honor, just on a practical level, reopening must have been, hugely nerve-wracking experience for everybody, but what's the type of feedback that you're getting from guests, and what kind of offerings can you have, as in, can you have people on your premises who are there just to dine if you have guests that are staying overnight, and those type of spaces, I suppose, where there might be an overlap of people? Or how are you coping with just, I suppose, the practical elements of when people would converge? Would it be in the restaurant? Would it be in the lobby area? How is all that going?
Well, it's going well. I mean, obviously revenues are limited versus previous years, because we're not going to full capacity on some of those non-residential services. Our residents do need to be our priority, and we need to conserve space for those. So we've moved to very much a reserve only model. And while we are welcoming non-residential traffic, we would ask that they reserve and that they and that they respect that there is limited space there. But realistically, yes, it was like, I mean, as I said, like we've always been so blessed with our team, and the hotel is open 12 years now, and so many of our team live locally and are true champions for the area. And they have such an informal way of delivering luxury. It's beautiful, and become so warm and so welcoming and so friendly with the clients. So to retrain a team to stand 2 steps back and to not stretch out the hand and to not clap someone on the back was rather difficult at the start, but I think they've done a great job, and they are just, you know, they're finding that balance there. And there will always be, it's very subjective, and there will always be, I guess, 2 things. We could be doing a step more or a step less. But we have a wonderful CRM that we send out surveys and pre-arrivals, and we just communicate with the guest totally. So we have done that quite a bit and done some exceptional surveys to certain guests to really push them on how they're staying, how they felt. And we're just assessing all that knowledge. So we meet every 2 days just on COVID and COVID practices as a group. And every property, each of our properties has a COVID chief who will then assimilate all of that information down. But yeah, it's a full-time job, as I'm sure it is a full-time job for all of the businesses in Dungarvan and Waterford. But I think the point is, we've all just flipped and done it, and the area is thriving at the moment, so we need to continue that.
And I honestly, I say to everybody, I think every person in Ireland should have a night in the Cliff House to see what exceptional customer service is and how it's delivered up there. I think you're phenomenal. I have a couple of questions on her, if that's okay. One person is asking here about your domestic guests. Do you have any idea of, I'm sure you have, of course, of where they're coming from just at the moment, to give people kind of a heads up on who's actually moving around the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dublin is always going to be the biggest market. It has the biggest population. So it hasn't changed for us versus previous years. Our top 3 counties would be Dublin, Kildare and Cork. A high proportion, Waterford actually features quite high there. So there's a lot of people doing the 5-minute commute to us as well, which we love. And I love that they can step inside the hotel and feel like they're in a different world. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a no-brainer. Dublin has the population base, so that would be our biggest feature. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Somebody asking about, you mentioned about collaboration, and they just wanted to know, could you expand on that a little bit? You mentioned about how you're going to, I suppose, prioritize it maybe a little bit more. You notice the value of it. Is there anything else that you might like to share this time?
No, I think just always what I'd say is let us know. Like we very much, I mean, I present to international buyers all the time. I probably have about 40 slides in my presentation. I think at most 8 of those are pictures of the hotel. So it isn't, for the international market, no matter how special a hotel is, it is never about the hotel. They're coming for the experience, for the area, for the people, for the destination. So for that reason, you know, our presentation is all of these wonderful pictures of what's available on our doorstep and what is available within 20-25 minutes of the property, and what they can do en route down to us from the major access points of Shannon and Dublin. So always let us know, you know, we're here, let us know. You may tell us you offer something and we won't call you for 3 years because we're not a high volume property, but we do need to know what's going on in the local community, what's going on in the local environment. We may feed back and say, oh, can we tweak that? Instead of 20 people on that tour, could we do 1 for 4 people or something like that? But really, please let us know, because you will see from our properties, from our marketing, from our websites, it's about the area. It's not too much. Of course, the hotel has to be of a certain standard, and we're very fortunate with the stunning architecture in the team and the culinary offering there. But really, there is nobody going to fly from Texas or don't mention Texas, but from Texas to Ardmore for just the Cliff House Hotel. They're not. They're coming for this, for Waterford.
Could I make a point on collaboration as well? Could I? 'Cause I think it's a really good point. We should never take for granted that everyone knows what's going on. There's so much information in the world, and the fact that you invited me onto this platform today is great to be able to share some of the key things going on in the Tourism Ireland space. And we got some feedback from business people there in the Waterford region who want to connect and learn more about the international environment, which is great. And I do a call this afternoon. I do it every week to all our staff around the globe, 160 people in 21 different markets who also need to know what's going on in Ireland and all the developments. And the presentation I got this morning now that I just listened to, well done to Honor and the team, it's terrific. My 5 key takeouts were the ones at the end. The new luxury space, off the beaten track, lesser known areas, green, clean and safe, and a story to tell. And when I'm talking to my team this afternoon, I can pass that on, that's the sort of conversation that's going on within Waterford. And that's really the true nature of collaboration. And these platforms make it really possible, that we can just join the dots much better. So then people do get traveling again, that we can tell our story in a compelling way, in a simple way that resonates to our customers.
Brilliant. I totally agree. I've learned so much. I have a question here that actually would be for Niall and Honor, just about what are the agents' perception of Ireland? So the overseas agents, are you seeing that there'd be potential repeat or new international guests that wouldn't have considered Ireland prior to COVID because it's now, let's say, the new luxury space type mentality? So I'd love to know your perceptions on that, or what the agents abroad are feeding back to you guys.
Well, we're doing regular roundtable conversations with all our clients abroad, and the feedback on Ireland is exceptionally positive. I think we'll get the best of both worlds. We'll get existing customers coming back, and we'll win new business as well. I think, obviously as COVID is still here and there's still social distancing, it'll make certain aspects of our business harder. For example, coach tourism has been decimated. How do you get 15 people onto what used to be a 50-seater coach? Well, you can get 15 on, but that's going to be very important. On the luxury side of things, I think we have had an amazing renaissance in luxury over the last 10 years. I mean, you take Clifford. I've had the honour to stay there a couple of years ago. It was terrific. Places like Ballyfin, Ashford Castle, Dromoland, Adair, it really has put Ireland on the map in a way that it wasn't before in luxury. And I think that's going to be a space in the next 5 to 10 years that will do very well for us. And in an era of sustainability, that's going to be important, because we can't keep growing our numbers every year at 5 or 10% because we'll end up with too many people. So you have to focus on the revenue as opposed to the volume. And that's going to be a critical part of the strategy moving forward, or it has been for the last number of years. How do we focus in markets that have a higher spend, higher yield customer, because we have the product to fit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just from a personal perspective, I mean, obviously we've a small team and a small group, so we only really, I suppose, spend kind of 2 weeks a year out of market selling in. But Ireland is like such a pleasure to sell. We, I've done sales tours and sales trips with other countries, and you always feel like the most popular girl in the room. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you walk in, you could have a French guy beside you, an Italian lady to your right, but they will still always come to the Irish person first. We have this wonderful reputation of warmth, of friendliness, of excitement. They're all kind of contrasting personality traits. We're tranquil, but we're great crack. We're this and we're that. So we seem to appeal to so many people inbound. And I think, if we can maintain that reputation, as Niall said, get over this quarantine dilemma, and see some form of clearance or framework out of that, then I'm pretty sure they're not booking at the moment. They most certainly aren't, but they all want to book, and that's what's important, I think.
Fantastic, thank you. Like I said, I learned so much, and I have to say I'm really energized by this, and I'm thinking about refreshing and content and space and luxury and all of those points that you touched on. Thank you very, very much, Honor and Niall. They were wonderful presentations. I'm sure people are getting onto their description about your little black book honor, and that they'll be in touch very soon. And Niall, it's great to hear that that there is so much hope, I suppose, for 2021. If Honor and Niall are under pressure for time, I totally appreciate that, and I'd like to thank you very much for participating. And if you need to head away now, please do. I'm going to hand over to Richie Welch from Waterford Local Enterprise Office. Thank you again, Niall. Richie from Local Enterprise Office, who's going to go through some resources that would be available to businesses locally, and how we might collaborate, I suppose, for the future, looking at discussions that have been or presentations that have been made today might lead to discussions into the future about how collaboration, affiliations, partnering, pairing, all that might happen in the future. Thanks again, folks.
And Jenny, just if you can raise a hand if you can hear me loud and clear, if you can, that's perfect. Thanks very much. I suppose I'm Richie Welch. I'm head of enterprise with the Local Enterprise Office, but I'm also head of rural development with Waterford City and County Council. So between the two of those, today's event is obviously very, very important. And I'm very conscious that within the audience today, there's a real mix of people from totally different backgrounds and everything. People who are small little operators, singular operators on their own, or small businesses, and other people that are leading pretty large organizations. In particular, I'm well aware that there are a number of people of Visit Waterford on board. Dave McCoy in particular, who leads that up. And that, to a large extent, is our primary vehicle in Waterford from the point of view of marketing. They do an excellent job, and they need to continue to do so. But to all the other people, the one thing that I would say is that it's so important to be very conscious that you're not alone. Because the one thing that I think this emergency has done more than anything else, it has made people, certainly for a time, feel that in a very lonesome position and not knowing where to go, what to do, and feeling, removed from decision making and everything. But the one thing that I would say to everybody is, you are not alone. And there are a whole range of agencies and support out there that you should be sort of picking up the phone to, whether they're the chambers or whether they're the local enterprise offices or whether it's Fáilte Ireland or whatever else it might be. But certainly make sure that you are not disengaged from the whole developing story. It's a really, really tough time, but there are supports there. And the primary support there is, as far as I'm concerned, a listening voice, or a listening ear, rather. And that's the one thing that we certainly provide, and we try and add professional balance with that then as well, from the point of view of, we have a whole range of mentors who are there to engage with small business. But so not only do they listen, but we hope that they bring real professional capability on board, whether it's in areas like HR or health and safety or e-commerce or whatever else it might be. So one thing that we would say, if you have any specific or any generic thing that you need a bit of support on, I'd say pick up the phone to the enterprise office and give us a shout. We can certainly work with people as well to deliver training regimes across the whole industry. And the one thing that I would say in Waterford over the last number of years that we have been driving towards is the pursuit of excellence. And whether that is the likes of Cliff in Ardmore, or whether it is Waterford Greenway, or whether it is the kind of work that's been done in the museums in Waterford City, or if it's the House of Waterford Crystal or whatever else it is, those things, to be quite honest, are excellent. Equally, further development, and we look forward to the next couple of years in Waterford, I think it's the one thing that we should put at the core of it, that whole idea of pursuing excellence, making sure that things are really, really, really good. Now, in respect of supports that we have for small businesses, to a certain extent, the tourism industry has been on our fringes previously, because we've been concentrating on the whole manufacturing arena. Our SLA with government has emphasised the whole manufacturing arena and the whole idea of the development of exports and indeed of internationally traded services. But more and more we are being, as it were, orientated towards helping the tourism sector as well. And I'd be very surprised, for the sake of argument, in today's stimulus, if there aren't a certain amount of supports that that are given to the local enterprise office that will be of significant support to the wider tourism sector and to the whole area of small businesses. The SMA and the SME sector out there is really struggling, but I think the stimulus package that is there, plus the ones that are there previous, certainly are valid, and they're certainly helping people over the line. The one thing that I would say is on a very simple basis, not everyone yet in any shape or form, and I believe that of the listeners today, have actually applied for the existing Restart grant, the COVID-19 Restart grant. Please look that up on the council's website and make sure that you're not that you are eligible. If you are eligible, make sure to apply for that. It's a simple piece of ready cash. Don't miss out on it. So with regard to other stuff, yeah, one other thing, just on Paul Low's point earlier on, with the question about collaboration. In my mind, this more than anything has driven totally through the need for the whole sense of collaboration, alignment, cohesion. There was a question earlier on about the coast and about how it works and everything like that. I mean, simple truth of it from our viewpoint is that in the new government, the government policies as announced as a programme for government, one of the things that is in there, for instance, is this concept of the Irish Sea Way, which is the idea of a whole trail, whatever that trail might consist of, from Carlingford to Cove, for the sake of argument. Now, as far as we're concerned, that is hugely important to Waterford. So the idea of developing the coast's capability without destroying it in any shape or form, because that uniqueness of the coast is so important. But everything that we have from Ardmore through to the Gael, through to Dungarvan, down along the Copper Coast to Drumore and to Dunmo East and to Waterford Estuary, that's a fantastic resource. And you combine that with resources that are, for the sake of argument, the Knockville Downs and the Gummer's Uplands, plus the Blackwater Valley, and you have a really, really fantastic capability there. So the whole idea of developing, for the sake of argument, the three counties blue way between Wexford, Waterford, and Wicklow, which will join, on both a technical level and on an experiential level, Bray with the all basically, is desperately important in this, and I think we can be really ahead of the posse when it comes to the Irish Sea Way. Waterford City and County Council can't do that on its own. It needs huge collaboration across a whole range of agencies, including local communities. The Mount Congreve development, for instance, on the rural development thing, is absolutely a collaboration between ourselves, Fáilte Ireland, and local communities and various other partners, including WIT and the ETB and other people that will be involved in delivery of stuff there. So as far as I'm concerned, it is absolutely at the moment all about people working together for common purpose. The whole idea of collaboration. If you think you can do anything in your own, you know you can. It's when you start sitting into a broader, bigger picture with people together that the whole thing really, really, really makes sense. So again, Paul Dow coming in there with the Celtic Corridor. The Celtic Corridor, to be quite honest with you, is a grand notion, and it's the connecting of Rosslea with Nissen Head, but the three counties blue way connecting Doll to Bray at the moment is our much more preferred and immediate option, because it fits in within government policy and it fits in within the programme of government. It's likely to be able to pull more funding into us and a few more things like that. So, alignment, common sense, cohesion, and people working together. So, look, I don't have an awful lot more to say, I think, genuinely, except, look, Waterford has real potential. It has real opportunity within the middle of all this. To a certain extent, it was already heading in the right direction. And if, for the sake of argument, to fund the development of the city, the fund development of towns like Dungarvan, Drumore, Dunmo East, Kilmacommerce and Portlaw can be added to the whole rural development places like Water Valley, Cummins Upland, we really have a splendid place then to put on the map. There's no the other ways. So Jenny, I think that's more or less all I want to say is, yeah, so away with it. But certainly we would be hoping that the day stimulus package, that there will be, we have bigger things to be telling people over the next number of weeks about what is available to them.
Great. Just last point, Paul Dara has also sent in a huge well done to Local Enterprise Office for all your hard work since the start of lockdown. So a massive well done. And I'd say here to that. I think Local Enterprise Office have been phenomenal, and probably the reason that there's still so many businesses in existence post-COVID or during COVID, but post the start of the pandemic. Massive thanks again for collaborating on this. We really appreciate your partnership. Honor, again, you're there. Thanks so much. And thanks for participants for your interaction on this as well. I hope everybody gained. I would say you should, and as Honor said, reach out to the rest of us though if we can be of assistance in any way. So thank you again, everybody. Take care.
Bye bye.